Perfect. So hi, my name is Shannon Hogue, and I'm the Global Head of Solutions Engineering here at Karat. It's my job to make sure that every technical interview we conduct is aligned to the right job description and hiring bar, and to make sure those interviews are predictive, fair, and enjoyable. Why? As many of you have possibly experienced, most technical interviews, they suck. Interviewers can use tired questions that don't produce a clear hiring signal and can insert bias and noise into the process. This problem is even more noticeable when hiring globally. So to fix a broken process and unlock opportunity, Karat turned interviewing into a profession. And in this presentation, we're going to explore how to set a consistent global hiring bar and where to open up new talent pipelines. 2020 upended just about everything, and hiring engineers was no exception. But there may be a silver lining. A remote workforce meant it got a lot easier to access engineering talent all around the world. Our clients interviewed candidates across 400 cities last year and made a total of 900 hires. So I wanted to share how you can successfully build the right team and a diverse team across the globe. It starts with a reality check on your current hiring bar. When we say hiring bar, we really mean on-the-job expectations. And to know that, you need to know specifically which competencies will lead to an engineer's success. You can identify them by doing a closed-loop analysis on your team, starting with performance reviews and looking back to the job description. If team members aren't meeting expectations, there's a really good chance that hiring process didn't assess for the right competencies or didn't get enough signal on those that matter. When we begin working with engineering leaders, we often hear them say, none of my candidates can code, or I can't bring anyone on site because they don't reach our bar. That means it may be time to reset your hiring bar. The job description, interview format and questions, and the scoring rubric used to make a hiring decision probably don't share common competencies, or the interviewers in your loop don't know how to assess for them. In that case, you'll want to apply the findings from your closed loop analysis to your hiring program, including interviewer training. If you found that most important competencies weren't being assessed for, or were being given too much or too little weight, document those findings too. Then rewrite the job description for the role, interview questions and formats, and structured scoring rubrics clearly to reflect them. Of course, it's worth doing some basic interviewer training on how to present your interview questions, give the right amount of guidance, and produce structured write-ups to give candidates a fair experience and give the team better hiring signal. So let's say you've done all of this work and your hiring process is fair and predictive. Now you're ready to go global, but where do you go? Let's take a quick look at the US. New York, San Francisco, and Seattle, of course, are the top 3 markets for developer hiring by volume, but they're expensive markets both in terms of hiring and in living. And excluding New York aren't exactly bastions of tech diversity. Of these 3, Seattle is actually our top market by candidate performance, with 46% of candidates achieving top scores on Karat interviews. But if the events of 2020 showed us anything, it's that distributed engineering teams work. We're seeing a huge influx of remote developer hiring and interest in it from engineering leaders. And so we looked at where engineering teams can find top performing talent in the US with less competition than in the top 3 tech hubs. Pittsburgh actually tops the list. And at the time of this analysis, there were only 800 open roles in the entire city. 3 of the most diverse cities in the US also made our list: Houston, Los Angeles, and my hometown of Chicago. Go Cubbies. This is something we'll continue to monitor, but it's important to know and act on today in order to develop a more diverse talent pipeline. Turning to Europe, Warsaw tops the list. While London may have had the most interviews conducted last year, we're starting to see more interviews being conducted in the Netherlands. So Amsterdam is a city to keep an eye on. In Asia, the focus is often on India. Mumbai and Hyderabad are home to the majority of top performers. They're also home to offices for many tech brands in the US, Google, Amazon, and Cisco, just to name a few. Candidates with a big tech background tend to be high performers, with more than 50% in the top 2 tiers. Those with retail and e-commerce sector experience also perform very well. This isn't to say that you should only focus on sourcing candidates from these backgrounds, but talent exists everywhere. And we recommend interviewing candidates from a wide variety of backgrounds and career experiences. And in fact, opening up who and how you source with a hiring process that accurately identifies candidates that meet your bar will help you build a more diverse, innovative team and made up of the right engineers. Recruiting in new markets may seem daunting, and yes, it's some work for sure, but there are 5 approaches that we've seen to have a big impact. First, focus on inclusiveness and reevaluate job postings for biased language. A study by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that job ads use more masculine wording were perceived by women as less appealing than the same ads using more feminine wording. Not to mention that those same job ads caused the reader to believe that there were fewer women in that occupation. This is important because perception is reality. Using more feminine language doesn't decrease the likelihood of men to apply. And again, please watch for phrases like 10x developer. So you will need to invest in brand recognition. A great way to do this and boost morale at the same time is to highlight the engineering heroes at your company. Prop them up if they're okay with that, and publicly celebrate their tech on an engineering blog, for example. Leverage analytics to drive results. This means you'll need to structure your hiring process so that it can be measured every step of the way. Many companies are building recruiting operations teams specifically to do this. You'll also need to eliminate false negatives by training your interviewers on the bias mitigation techniques. This is a long-term commitment. We also recommend that any engineer participating in interviewing not only receives unconscious bias training, but also trained on specific interview questions and formats and completing structured write-ups. And last, don't ignore markets with lower performers. You can use basic knowledge questions to get a clear read on whether or not a candidate understands a concept. Just have the right leveling and set the right expectations and then move forward. Prepare for global hiring by identifying the right competencies for each role before you start sourcing and assessing candidates. Apply those competencies to the job description, interview formats and questions, and scoring rubric. That way you'll maximize hiring signal and be as confident as possible in your recommendations. Make sure to train your interviewers presenting interview questions, giving guidance, and producing structured write-ups. Don't assume everyone knows or wants to know how to interview. And finally, open up your recruiting efforts and go global, at least hire beyond your headquarters. Strong engineering talent can be found anywhere with a fair and predictive hiring process. Thank you so much for joining.